Shani Jones. I am your resident certified sex coach, and you are listening to DOYOUKNKY, which stands for Do You Know the New Kinky You? And you're actually watching this because this is my YouTube summary for the podcast. So luckily, those of you who had the opportunity to listen to the podcast, you're here just to provide commentary on what it is that we've talked about all week, because you've already gotten all the details. This is really just a summary of what we've talked about. And hopefully those of you who have not yet gotten a chance to listen to the podcast, which you can find on Spotify at DOYOUKNKY, all of that great stuff. I should put that on the slide so while I'm up here you can see it and I don't have to spell it all the time. I'll work on that for next week. If you're here looking at the YouTube, please go and listen to the podcast as well, because this is where we go into a little bit more detail about the topics that we are going to summarize here. And I realized last week, so I'm going to do this recording every Sunday. So this is week 2 because we're on the second week of January 16th, and you guys can't see it right now. January 16, 2022, depending on when you're watching this. It is snowing outside, and I am going to hurry up and get my ass out of here because I am recording from the Sexual Health, the KNKY Sexual Health and Wellness Salon, which is the house that I bought to run the business out of, my coaching services and things like that. But it is also available to rent for Airbnb if you're local to the area, or if you're coming to visit the Washington, D.C. area, or if you wanted to host an event. Like, for instance, I have a bachelor party coming up here in a couple of weeks. So again, you can reach out to me. It's easiest via email, which is contact@DOYOUKNKY.com, or you can go to the website, take a look at the videos and the pictures. There are also videos on YouTube too. But anyway, I digress. I got off topic. So what we're doing is our summary for the podcast, which is reading from the book Mirror of Intimacy, Daily Reflections on Emotional and Erotic Intelligence by Alexandra Katakis and Tom Bliss. Now, this book is the 2015 book ASECT Book of the Year, and ASECT stands for American Association of Education, Sexuality Education Counselors and Therapists. And so this is our book. It's a pretty thick book, so we will be reading this all year long. So ideally, God willing, every single day I will be able to post a podcast on the topics that we are reading from this book. And every week, God willing, I will be able to do one of these summary videos. And so what I was going to say a little earlier was that my video from last week was a little long. Summary shouldn't last 24 minutes. And I know that I get to doing all of this, so I'm going to keep it brief and simple. We're about 3 minutes in, and I promise you, we'll probably take no more than 10 minutes to do the summary. So I know you have great things to do, although you would like to look at my face more often, but you can always rewind if you want to do that. All right, so January 10th, we talked about sexual abandon, and some of the key takeaways from sexual abandon were, this is where I did have some dissent with the author's opinion. I couldn't figure out whether they thought sexual abandon was a good thing or a bad thing. And, for me, it can be both. I thought they leaned a little bit more towards it being a bad thing, but it can definitely be both. I think that any situation, when you are putting your heart, mind, and body and spirit into it, can, regard yourself to a situation where you're in or feeling sexual abandon. I think that it can happen, throwing that caution to the wind, lowering those inhibitions, not necessarily conforming to the norm. And the norm is, the baseline for normal doesn't exist. So there's that for the 10th, giving yourself over to the situation and, not using sexual abandon to numb yourself from pain and from trauma and things like that. On the 11th, we talked about consent, and consent is a big thing now. You know, verbal and nonverbal consent. What does it actually mean? Consent. Open your mouth and say the words yes, no. If you aren't sure, it's a no. So, you know, until you feel like a positive yes. So use your verbal and nonverbal communication. And so what the research has shown is that verbal communication is very, very important, especially in new couples where you haven't worked out those dynamics. But in more mature couples, meaning like you've been together longer, the nonverbal consent is typically okay. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to pay attention to those nonverbal cues, which means that somebody might say yes, but they don't really mean to. Not even that they don't mean to, but they really don't want to. So this is where the bullet point for conceding versus consenting, there is a difference, and you can talk about it. Then we have age of consent. Age of consent. Now, this particular topic bothered me a lot just because the authors made comment that, you know, the age of consent is typically 18, and we know that not everybody waits till they're 18 to have sex. So what does that mean for our younger people under 18 who engage in sex? What does that mean for them as far as consent is concerned? The next part, we talked about impotence. Impotence, we talked about on the 12th. Impotence really is, it's not necessarily not a physical condition, because there are physical effects from impotence, but in the high 90% of the time, impotence is a mental issue, not a mental health disorder, but a mental issue, meaning like you're in your head. You're focusing on how well you're performing, which gives you performance anxiety, which means you're worried and you're anxious, which means your penis isn't going to perform the way that you expect it to, which means you're now being even more anxious and things. So it's a vicious cycle. And so it creates physical limitations on what it is that you can do. So because again, it manifests itself in losing an erection, or, you know, not being able to engage in sexual activity to the level of expectation that you have. But again, it's you're creating that level of expectation. So when you're not meeting it, again, it's a vicious cycle. So what we need to do is, as opposed to getting in our heads, you got to get into your body and enjoy the moment, and again, practice that mindfulness and be the person that is connecting with your partner. Or if you're, you know, doing self-love, and you connect with yourself, like get out of, you know, everything and just enjoy the moment. So we are the ships, we're the captains of our own ship, meaning we can't rely on other people to create a good sexual experience for us. It's on us to do this, to be in our bodies, not in our minds, unless your mind is being capped off with the fantasies that are helping to accentuate that scenario that you're currently in. But, you know, if you're worried about bills and, you know, or again, performance, am I doing a good job? Does he or she like it? Whatever. Be in the moment. If you like it, they'll like it, pretty much. All right, the 13th, we talked about withholding. Now, again, this is a scenario where the authors and I, you know, we had a bit of a dissent, and, you know, I'm not a fan of what they said, you know, that people use withholding, or people that use withholding were basically, you know, suffering from psychological abuse. I think withholding it's practical depending on how you use it, when you use it, who you use it towards. So I use the example, withholding is punishment. And if you're dealing with, you know, a child, withholding is part of life. You withhold things when they don't do what they're supposed to do. But that's not necessarily a good tactic when you're dealing with a partner. If you are in a relationship, then you're supposed to work together to resolve issues, not try to punish each other just to get your way. So that's our withholding conversation. On the 14th, we talked about difficulty. You know, I believe that again, authors, we had a little bit of a dissent. They said that some difficulties are forever, and I don't believe that. I believe that there is a difference between a difficulty and a challenge, and that challenges are things that we can accept and we can figure out how to deal with, and that is our goal, to deal with challenges, but not to be burdened by difficulties. They mentioned sex addiction, and there is a lot of debate. Sex addiction is not a part of the DSM, which is the psychology manual that licensed therapists use to help diagnose patients and to determine what conditions meet the criteria to discern a proper diagnosis. So sex addiction is something that was mentioned in this particular book, chapter on the 14th, and again, don't have the same feelings about it. But, anything in life we can get through. And so I think that if you're going through anything in particular, that might be a good day to catch up on. Bodily pleasure, we talked about this yesterday. Again, I think a lot of people, this is where we're back into our, we're in our head and not our bodies type of thing. And so, when we're in our heads, we think about, well, I don't like the way I look, and then we transfer that to our partners. They must look at this thing that I don't like, and they don't like it. And then there's a lot of transference, and that is just not good. Our partners 99% of the time don't see what we see. And even if they do see it, they don't see it the way we see it. So we can't burden them with, our own body image issues. But, when we have body image issues, we can be proactive. We can deal with those. I can help you deal with them if that's something that you want to change. But at the end of the day, you have to love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, even if you change that particular part of your body, you're going to find something else wrong. So, be a person that can love themselves regardless, and not only love yourself physically, but understand how your body responds to pleasure. So what does it mean to receive pleasure? What does it mean to give yourself pleasure, your body exploration, especially for young women? We are very much impacted later on in life because we haven't done the due diligence to identify who we are and how we are as sexual beings. So it's very hard for us to communicate what is pleasurable to someone else when we don't even know sometimes. And then our last topic, I'm doing well today, is trauma. And so I'm going to show you this because you probably don't believe me. When I did the podcast, I had to show. So this is typically what the book looks like, right? This page. And you see our trauma page is completely blank. It's not completely blank. Oh, I forgot to read the passage. Oh, okay, so for trauma, since I forgot to read it, I'll read it now. Anything that's human is mentionable. And anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. When we can talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. The people we trust with that important talk can help us know that we are not alone. Fred Rogers. So yeah, I wanted to specifically say that it was a blank page, so I still managed to talk for 12 minutes. I believe it was around 12 minutes. I don't know how I do it. But the basic bottom line is that we all go through shit. Some people's shit is worse than the other. I'm not trying to minimize anything that anybody goes through. But at the end of the day, I'm a sex coach. I only can implore you to get professional help, to talk to a licensed professional licensed therapist, certified therapist, hopefully someone who is a certified sex therapist, who is sex positive, and can help be a guide to help unfold the layers of things that are causing you distress, because that is the problem. Trauma within itself is one thing, but when trauma is impacting your life in various ways, me specifically dealing with sex, but whatever the issue is in your life, if it's being an impairment to you, talk to somebody that's trained to help you deal with it. It's, we all need help. I think a lot of times we just go through life thinking, I just have to deal with this. I'm in this by myself. You're not. We're a community. None of us can get along by ourselves. That's just not how the world works. None of us can do this alone. So in the event that you need help, reach out to the appropriate person. And if you don't know who that person is, reach out to me and I will try to help you figure out who that appropriate person is. So that is it for our weekly summary. I will be back reading on the podcast tomorrow, and we will be reading all week long. And then I will again do a weekly summary on Sunday. And next Sunday, we'll actually be doing a live recording. So I guess this is a bit of a teaser. We're going to be doing a live podcast. Actually, I'm lying. We're not going to be doing a live podcast. We're going to be recording. I'm going to be recording a podcast series with some young ladies that are in the cannabis industry. So we're going to be doing a sex and cannabis series on the podcast. So please look out for that. I will probably do some kind of teaser just to redirect you to the podcast. So between the YouTube and the podcast and the Instagram and the website, there are lots and lots of different ways to get content that is KNKY. So remember to like, subscribe, follow, all of those good things. Provide comments. I much appreciate it. You can hate this show. Tell me what you hate about it. If I need to provide more information about different topics, please. I have a thick skin, whatever it is. And if you like the show, tell me what you like. I want to give you content that is useful to you and beneficial for you. So again, my name is Shani Jones, resident certified sex coach. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for spending your time with me. And I will talk to you again soon.